Hello fellow book nerds, this is Gabby and welcome to yet another reading vlog. So I am not a professional booktuber. This is not my job. Like I'm not joking because I don't have a job. Seriously, I am a serious booktuber now with a NetGalley account. Do you know what that means? I get all these ARCs. If you don't know what an ARC is, it means advanced reader copy, and it's a copy that publishers can send to reviewers and librarians and all that kind of jazz to review before the actual book comes out. NetGalley is a website that is really easy to make an account. You don't need to have any professional experience or anything. You just need to be a book reviewer, and that can be either on BookTube or you have your own blog on Bookstagram, but it can also just mean that you put reviews up on Amazon, the book depository. You can apply to get ARCs and then you can get advanced reader copy from NetGalley. It's usually ebooks. So all of the books I'm going to be reading this are going to be e-ARCs. I've been so happy and blessed to get a couple of ARCs approved. I requested all of these ARCs and I got them, and they're coming out next month. So I thought, why not make a super cool reading vlog for you guys when I read all of these ARCs, and so I can maybe make some hype for them. I can tell you if they're worth your money, if they're worth investing, if you should check them out, all that kind of thing. So there's 4 ARCs on this list and all of them are coming out in June. As with all of my vlogs and all the books that I read, I mostly know nothing about them. So wait till we get a little bit later in the vlog and I'm going to tell you what the book is about as I'm reading it. So the first book I'm going to be reading is Forest of Souls. I am so excited about this. I found out with this book just probably seeing it around on Twitter. It has the most amazing cover and it sounds really good. I don't actually remember what it's about. I knew what it was about when I requested it, but now I don't remember anymore. But I requested it thinking it was such a long shot, and I actually got approved pretty easily, so that was really amazing. I was so excited. But yeah, that was probably a couple months ago, but now I really want to read it because there's also a pre-order campaign going on. So if you pre-order a book, the author will send you like really amazing, beautiful metal bookmarks and some other swag. So I'm thinking I want to pre-order it. I should read it to see if I'm enjoying it before I spend money on it. Next up we have A Song Below Water, which is coming out on June 2nd, and this book I know nothing about except mermaids. And mermaids, as you might know because I did mention it a couple times, are my absolute favorite mythical creatures ever. So when I saw such a beautiful cover with mermaid on it, I was just like, I need it, and I got it, and I'm just so excited. So I don't know what it's about, but I know it's mermaids. Next up is one that I actually did know before I picked it up and requested it because it's Anti-Virginity Pact, and this book I knew about because the author of it is a fellow booktuber. Her name's Katie from Kate's Book Journey, and I've been following her for probably about a year or two, and she came up with this book. She's self-publishing it and I just really wanted it, so I requested it and I was so happy when I got it, and I've actually already read it, which I'm gonna update you on in a second. And the last one was just something random I requested and got, and it's called This Eternity of Masks and Shadows, and I know it has something to do with gods walking the earth pretending to be mortals. I gave you guys a poll on Twitter and you chose this book instead of Acts of Faith, I think, which is like an elves inspired book. So we're reading this one. I'm gonna link all the books and how to pre-order them, all of that, in the description. Anti-Virginity Pact tells a story of 2 girls who signed anti-virginity pact, agreeing that they want to lose their virginity by the end of senior year of high school. One of them is living in quite a conservative religious household, and it's really about her trying to come out of her shelf and do more things that she enjoys in her last year of high school and kind of on her way to growing up. It's really a coming of age story with some really important themes in it as well, which I really appreciated. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a really good story that really made me engage. I read it very fast, and it had a really good characters, which I enjoyed, although at times they were quite immature, but I think that's just given in like YA contemporaries. Sometimes their decision making eluded me. Like I mentioned, it discussed a lot of really important and hard topics quite tastefully. I thought it was done really well, and Katie, in her introduction to the book, she said it's quite a dark contemporary. I don't know if I would agree with that. I think if you're going in expecting something really dark, you might get a little bit disappointed because that's not what the book is. It discusses important topics and sometimes hard situations, but I wouldn't really call it dark, and I feel like maybe it tried to do a little bit too much. There were so many different plot points, threads that go through the whole book, so many important things the book wanted to discuss. It got a little bit lost and a little bit too much to actually comprehend and focus on one important topic, instead of just was multiple topics. You thought something ended, then you realized, oh, there's just like 3 more things to tie up, so it just kept going and kept going, and it felt a little bit ridiculous at the end because there's so many things layered, and I feel like that could have done a little bit with maybe cutting down and maybe choosing what you actually want to discuss instead of trying to discuss everything. That's the only thing that impeded my liking of this, as I felt that it just wouldn't stop. But like I said, I did really enjoy this book. I really would recommend it highly. I think it discussed really important adult topics in a good way for teenagers and young adults. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I actually gave it 4 stars, I believe, so pretty high rating from me. Today I'm gonna start Forest of Souls, and I'm really hoping to really love it because I really want to love it. It just sounds so good, and I love the cover, and I want it on my shelves. We see how it goes. It's been about 2 days, and I am now 50%, about almost 50% into Forest of Souls, and I think it's time for a little bit of a synopsis. In this book, we follow Saoirse, who is part of the Queen's army, as well as being an apprentice to the Queen's assassin, and she really wants to secure her place in the world by becoming the royal assassin. That's what she wants to do. One day, however, she gets into trouble. She gets into trouble and she finds out that she has power that she never dreamt of. She's one of the shaman-born, or shaman, and she has power that hasn't been seen in a long time. So first off, we kick off with about 12 pages of a glossary explaining every single aspect of the book, which I wasn't a fan of. I think glossaries are okay. Glossaries are great. Sometimes you need a little bit of a reminder, maybe you missed something, you want a clarification, that's great. But I think they should go on the back of the book, because if they're in the front of the book, it just makes me feel like I'm meant to read it before I even get into the book. But I don't want to sit there and read 50 or however many different definitions without any context, without any interest. I was bored. I read like first 10 and then I just got bored, so I stopped reading. Yeah, and I was like, I'm sure it's gonna be explained in the actual book. This is just, I don't know, to catch the reader up. Was explained, but not very well. So most of the concepts we do get explained, and we do get the word explained a little bit in the book, so I was able to understand the gist of everything, but there was a lot of phrases that were just introduced and never explained, so it makes me feel like the author does want you to read the glossary and expects you to remember everything from the glossary, even though there's so many things. And I know that when you have a physical book, it's way easier because you just flip-flop and read the thing and then you go back to the book, even though I think that shouldn't be necessary either. I don't want to be taken out of the story to check what a dragon whatever it is, because it's a special kind of dragon and I need to know. So that, I think, is poor world building. If your story cannot stand on its own as a text and needs additional glossary explanations and stuff like that, I feel like it could have been woven better. So that is something that's been bothering me, because I can still understand the story, but I'm gonna admit a couple times they said something that they're just like, yeah, that's the fact, that's what it is. They don't say exactly what it is or how it works, so I was just like, I'm not going back to the glossary because I have an ebook, and because it's an ARC, it's not very formatted very well, so actually there's no headings or no numbers for the chapter. But that means that if I go to the beginning, then finding my way back will be quite hard because there's no markers, there's no chapters. So for me, it's just too much effort to go back to the glossary. That's what I'm trying to say. I just want to be into the story, I want to be involved in the story, and that's it. And I don't have to go back and check every word and every word building piece that you didn't want to put in a glossary. I don't know, to me it's lazy. I don't like that. But that being said, pretty much everything else I'm really enjoying. So our main character Saoirse, I like her. She's assertive, she knows what she wants, she's working for it, she's reasonable, which I enjoy. I enjoy reasonable characters. I don't like hot-headed people. Then we have her best friend, which is really nice because I like their relationship. I like that there's a female friendship. I lately watched a video from Thoughts on Foams, and she was talking about female friendships and YA fantasy and how there's basically none, or if they're there, they're overshadowed by the romance, but not in this book. Well, so far there's absolutely no romance in this book, so the female friendship is the primary relationship we have. Because of the circumstances they're in right now, we don't really see them that much together interacting, but they've had a very long history of a friendship, and I really appreciate that. I can tell that they're really dear to each other and they mean a lot. Like I said, there's no romance so far, although there's many male characters, and I've realized, well, I've always done this, every male character I'm like, hello, are you the love interest? So I need to stop doing that. And now I'm even like, every female character was, I don't know, maybe this is a queer story, I'm like, hi, are you the love interest? So I just need to stop doing that, because that means I can't really focus and appreciate characters for what they are. So like I said, there's potential couple of love interests, but there's not really one that is developing very much. So another thing is, if you watch my video for my owls vlog, I have a little bit of a rant about how I really want stories where women are just equal and the world is equal, and it doesn't have to be misogynistic and anything like that. And I finally found it. So if you are into that kind of world, or you just wanted to read something like that, read this book, read Forest of Souls. So far there's been a lot of women in the government, women in the army, guards, and in positions of power, and it hasn't really been questioned, or it hasn't been pointed out as unusual, and the main character's never really put down because she's a girl. She's other reasons, but I quite like the world. I think it's interesting, although like I said, underexplained. So in this world we have 3 types of beings. So one is a human, just regular old folk with no magic. Then we have shaman born or shamans, and they have different types of magic, depends on what kind of magic they have. Their eyes glow a certain color, and they have different aspects of magic. And then we have 3rd type of creature, which is shadowborn. I think they're shadowborn. I think they're called shadowborn. Something with shadows. I don't really understand the difference between them and shamans. I know that shadowborn, their only powers are like shadows, but I don't see why they couldn't just be a part of shadowborn, shamanborn. But at the same time, they have very striking physical characteristics, and they're considered a different race. So they have like white skin, white hair, and just very ethereal look. And then shamans also have familiars, and these are creatures that have a little bit magic in them, so they are what enables shamans to perform their magic. Without them they are powerless, and these are different animals, creatures, stuff like that. So that brings me into another point. If you don't like spiders, don't read this book. There is a character that's called Spider King, and he's a very, very powerful, prominent figure in this world, and he's a shaman, and his familiar is a spider, like a giant spider. You know how in Akatar, when Feyre goes to get like silk from spiders, something, they're like giant, or like think Harry Potter, Aragog, like giant spider. Spiders are very present theme in this book, and so far we haven't met the giant spider, but we have met smaller spiders, and there's webbing everywhere on the castle, and there's a lot of clacking noises, and there's a lot of noises of many feet going. So you know, if you're not into that kind of thing, maybe not for you. If you're like really scared of spiders, I hate spiders. Like, I am physically really scared of them and repulsed by them, and I hate them, and I've been scarred when I was little by the Harry Potter movie. But yeah, so far I'm quite enjoying it. I think writing style is good, but because it's an arc, there's a couple of sentences that don't make sense, or like mistakes, that I'm sure they're gonna make sure that's gone by the final book. But it's just something that I've been noticing, but I don't want to complain about it because I know it's an arc. So I just want to mention that if those are gone in the final product, then there you go. But there are a couple of weird sentences that didn't make sense. But yeah, that's it for this update. Bye. Okay, I have finished Forest of Souls, and I don't know how I feel. I don't think it was a bad book. I did enjoy my time reading it, and there was a lot of things that I enjoyed about it, but at the same time there were so many instances where I thought it could be improved and something should be changed. Firstly, about characters. I feel like there was a lot of missed potential there. So Saoirse is the main character, and I feel like it was really hard for me to connect to her and really believe in what she was feeling, because there was a lot of things that happened to her, and a lot of times that she said it had a really big emotional impact, but for some reason I didn't feel the impact, and for that reason she never really came alive to me, so I could never really connect with her. And I think that the supporting characters as well were a little bit lacking. So Sengo, I'm probably saying it wrong, is the best friend of the main character, and I feel like her we got so little from, even though she was quite present in terms of the main character thinking of her, and she was always there in the background. But she had such a potential to be such a compelling and complex character, really going through something here, because something really, really big happened to her, something life-changing, but we never really got to see her perspective. She was looking a little bit sad in a couple of scenes, and like the main character sometimes made a comment on it, but we never really got to see her thoughts. We never really had a proper conversation about what happened. We never fully got to know her. For that reason, even though the friendship was that, like, there's no romance in this book, so I feel like the friendship is the main relationship here, but I wasn't 100% sold on their friendship, even though there was so many elements that should have made me love it, but I just didn't. And there's some other secondary characters that I did really enjoy when they were there, like Prince Melik, Old Tayan, and even the Spider King. All of them were compelling when they were there, but I felt like the only time when they actually got to be on the page was where it was convenient for the plot, so they were just introduced whenever it was convenient, and otherwise we never hear from them. So that really impeded my ability to really connect to them and really like them or enjoy them or really understand them as characters. Even the villains of the story, we got so little from that I didn't really feel their motivations were clear, like, at all. Especially like the big villain. The villain that we never even meet by is a villain. It has a big part. I do not understand their motivation at all, and even the other villain, very murky on the motivations there, so they weren't very compelling. So like I said before, the world building was a little bit lacking especially in terms of explaining of the world. It just wasn't done. Something was just introduced and you should read the glossary apparently and memorize it like you were reading a test. I didn't like that, and that did not change as we went forward. But another thing that really bugged me about the way they found out information was how the characters just kind of guessed everything. They are in this mansion, right, and they have this enormous library right there, like it's right there. They even mention it a couple times, they go there a couple times, but somehow they never think, maybe I should look for some information here, and that's how they stumble upon the information, that's how they move on and all that kind of thing. No, so in this book they have this library, but they just guess. They're just kind of like, this is happening. I have absolutely no proof, nothing really tells me that this is happening, but I just thought this up in my mind, so it must be true. It's so stupid. I'm sorry, but it is. Normally in the books, movies, the characters would go do some research, they would hear from some old hag that lived for however long, they would go find different characters to give them information, and then they would compound all this knowledge, and then they would come up with like a theory. In this book they just guess. I think this is happening, and this is exactly what's happening, but let's just forget the fact that there's no proof. That annoyed me to no end. It was so annoying. And then of course the character was right, because it's the main character. There was only one time when they actually had information from a book, and the way they stumbled upon it is a secondary character found the book, found the information, came to the main character, was like, I think this is happening. Again, there was no proof, there was no other information, just the thing they found. At least it was in the book though. No proof. The main character is like, this is must be what's happening. It just must be. There's no way that's not what's happening. And then 2 minutes later, the main character forgets the whole thing, and just like, that's not relevant anymore. I don't know if the author thinks we're stupid or what, I don't know. It was really clunkily done. I did not enjoy that. The whole plot itself was a little bit of a mess. So the beginning and end feel cohesive. There's a story there, it's happening. But then randomly in the middle of the book they just go on this detour that has very little purpose, even less logical sense, and zero consequence. There's almost no consequence. I think if you took out that whole part, nothing would change. Now, the thing that I did enjoy was the climax of the book. I think it was written pretty well. It was high stakes. It was long, so I like climaxes that take not 2 pages, but like at least a couple of chapters, so that something happens, then you have to overcome that. If something happens, you have to overcome that. Like, I like climaxes that build the tension. I don't want to compare it too much, but if you enjoy Shadow and Bone, maybe you'll enjoy this, because there's some really big similarities and I kept thinking about them. So just bear with me in a minute. I'm just going to describe a book and you're going to tell me what book it is. There's a kingdom when there are magical people and non-magical people, and the way magical people works, and they have different castes and different types of magic, and then within that caste of magic that is marked by color, then there's even more categories within the bigger category, and in this world there is a big darkness, a chasm if you will, like a physical darkness within the world that really impedes traveling, and if you go near that place you're gonna die or be transformed. And then the main character has light-based powers, and they're the only one who can defeat the darkness. There's also a really old magical figure who's a man, dark and broody, who has been keeping the dark power in check for many years. And the premise is really similar. Then the book diverges quite a lot. So I don't want to say that anything's been copied. I'm just saying maybe if you enjoy Shadow and Bone, you would enjoy this because basic setup is really similar. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Maybe it's a book for you. I thought it was okay. Okay, so I have finished A Song Below Water, and again, I'm really confused about how I feel. It's a weird case because I really enjoyed the story, but I really hated the way it was written. So it's two very opposing things in my head. The enjoyment of the story and what actually happened and themes and stuff like that, as opposed to how the information was presented to me and how the book was structured and things like that. So I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record, and I swear to God, I don't need everything spoon-fed to me, but this book could not explain anything to save its life. It was just so confusing. So A Song Below Water is a story about alternative modern day Earth when there's paranormal mythological creatures, but there's also like everyday life, and it's legit just our world, but they have different kinds of creatures. It's kind of an urban fantasy, but at the same time it reminds me of Crescent City because it is set in an urban setting. However, there's not really that secrecy element, so everyone knows that there are magical creatures and that kind of thing. So the main character, she's a siren, and sirens in this world, they're different. They're mermaids, so they're not the mermaids that we know that swim and have tails and that kind of thing. They're the sirens from mythology where their voice have power to compel other people and make them do whatever they want, so their siren call is really powerful. And the main character has a best friend who's kind of like her sister. They live together, and she is playing a mermaid at a fair, and it's kind of about their life because the main character is the siren, and sirens are only black women in this society, and because of how strong and compelling their siren call is, they are really hated and people are frightened of them in this society, so they have to hide. My problem with this book is, like I said, nothing was explained, and with Forest of Souls I was complaining about the glossary, and I said that's a lazy way to do world building, but I would take the glossary anytime over what happened in this book. One of the opening statements, all the myths are false and myths cannot be believed. So that's the thing. We know the myths from our real world, but they can't be believed. Okay, fine. But we never ever are explained what actually the rules are. Nothing in this world is explained. No other creatures are explained, but they exist. For the longest time I didn't understand that by sirens they mean something completely else than mermaids, so I kept thinking, because they still have a very strong connection to water. Later there's a plot point where they think they might be meeting a mermaid, and they were like, oh, but mermaids are basically like revered, so it's fine. When did we establish this? When did we establish that sirens, mermaids are different things? All the other mythological creatures, again, all the myths are false, the myths can't be trusted, but we're not gonna tell you what can be trusted and what's the truth in this book. So everything just felt like it came out of nowhere. It felt like I was confused for most of it. There were legitimate sentences that made no sense to me. Absolutely zero sense, because I didn't know what they were talking about, because they would just come out of nowhere and talk about oracles, and they would talk about different mythological creatures, and they were talking as if I was a part of the world, so I knew that this creature was extinct and I knew this one wasn't existing. And there's even a sentence somewhere in there's like, oh, but there's no, I don't remember what the creature was, but it's just like, oh, there's no unicorns, duh, like I'm stupid. But I was never told this until this point. How am I stupid for maybe thinking it's real, because all the other things are real but the myths are not real? And it just made me feel like an idiot because it assumed I lived in this world and understood everything. There was whole chapters that were so meandering. Like, we would start off a chapter with focusing on this character, then we take a whole detour not even mentioning this character or anything about them, and then at the end we'd come back to this character and we continue the scene. I was so confused about this whole structure. Like, what is this? I think these sentences were supposed to be world building, like, duh, unicorns don't exist, duh, myths aren't real, but like, it's not world building if you just throw it in there and not explain at all. I swear I don't need to be spoon-fed. I swear I'm okay with ambiguity. But this much, it just impeded my experience so much because I kept being frustrated that I wasn't told anything, and then I was treated like an idiot for assuming something. But that being said, I really enjoyed the actual story. There's so many discussions about race, about experience of black women, particularly in America but in general, about experience of women and how they're being silenced and how people treat others and how they're being at fault and how they can't use their voice. It was really well done and really beautiful, and it had so many important themes. There was a really strong female friendship in this book because the main character, her best friend, lives in her house but they're not related and she's kind of adopted. They have this really strong bond, and it's a really strong bond of friendship to the point where they become sisters. Those were the things I enjoyed, but like I said, the book just needed edits and it needed someone to tell the author that you can't just assume other people know what your mythos is. If you say that all the myths are not true, I'm just gonna assume that's the case. And then if you never tell me what is true, I'm just gonna be confused. I really think the writing could have used so much more work and so much more help. I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars because it wasn't a bad story. It was a good story told in a really poor way. Would I recommend this? Maybe. I would recommend it for the story. This means that we are 3 for 4. So I only have 1 book left, which is The Eternity of Masculine Shadows. I might wait a couple days and then start reading it just to give myself a break from fantasy, but yeah. Hello, I have finished This Eternity of Masculine Shadows. I'm really sorry for not updating you, it just was not a good time to start filming. I don't know, I read it quite quickly, so there you go. But let's talk about it now. This Eternity of Masculine Shadows follows a world where all the mythological gods are true. Every 100 years they reincarnate and they're born into new bodies, but they still have their powers, etc, etc, and they don't really remember their old lives. So the world is populated with different kinds of gods. There's like Inuit gods, Greek gods, Roman gods, African gods, all kinds of gods. So our main character is the daughter of the Inuit goddess Sedna, but one day something happens to her mother, and this kind of starts a chain of events that is the plot of this book. And this book is so genre bending because it was like a mythology retelling with a superhero movie with a crime solving show, like a buddy cop thing. It was really weird in that sense, and I know it was on purpose because I was reading some interviews with the author and he said that there's like no genre to it, but I guess it would be fantasy, but everything's taking place in kind of modern day Earth. There's just different kinds of gods walking around as well. But I really enjoyed that actually. I felt like I was watching a Marvel movie, but at the same time I was watching a Bones episode, which I'm actually doing right now because I'm on my rewatch. I made it an engaging story. It was really action-packed, and also it was nice to read a fantasy that's quite different than what I'm used to, so I really enjoyed that part of it. And the book is really diverse. There's so many different gods, and even our main character, she has Inuit descent, and then her love interest, it has African descent, and there's another character that's Inuit. I like that the author decided not to just take the well-known Greek gods or Scandinavian gods, but they decided to take from many different Asian and African cultures, and there's an Egyptian god. Like, it's really nice and diverse in that sense. I couldn't really find the ethnicity of the author, so I'd be curious if the Inuit descent main character was kind of own voices or not. I've been looking for like own voices representations from different cultures, so I wasn't sure about this one. Actually, if you know, maybe you can tell me. I think his name's Kirsten Knight or something like that. But it was really well written out of all these books, except for Anti-Virginity Pact, but Anti-Virginity Pact is a contemporary, so it's also quite different. But out of all the stories that I read for this vlog, 100% the best world building in terms of actually explaining the world to the reader and actually making a cohesive, understandable, nice to follow world. Definitely the best one. That being said, I don't know if it was my favorite because the story, although it was really cool, I never really got super attached to any of the characters, and I feel like the main character was not the type of person I would personally like, but at the same time, like, there was nothing really wrong with her. So the romance in here is female, so that was really cool, and it was kind of childhood friends to lovers story, so that was really adorable. But at the same time, because it was childhood friends to lovers and they get together in like first chapter or maybe second chapter, we didn't see that development of their feelings. They just loved each other right away. I always find it harder to get into the romance if I don't see the progression of the romance, but nevertheless it was a really nice couple whom I rooted for and liked. I liked how it was structured. So there's a story that's happening right now, but there's a story that happened like 19 years ago that's still tying into what's happening right now. So I liked finding out a little bit about what happened in the past and now how it corresponds to the present. I really like that kind of story structure. I gotta say though, for a YA novel, I feel like there's a lot of graphic violence in this. I thought maybe it's an adult novel, I just didn't realize, but then when you go to Goodreads it says YA. There's a lot of descriptions of dead bodies because they're going to crime scenes and figuring that out, and there's people murdering each other, and it's all quite graphic. I don't mind that. I like crime shows, so I'm familiar. I'm just letting you know. Thing is, I really don't have complaints about this book. I thought it was well written, it was engaging, interesting, all of that. I just didn't like fall in love with it necessarily. I feel like because it's a standalone as well, it's always harder for it to like wow me. I would recommend it though if you're really into mythology and you want to kind of check out all kinds of mythology and maybe some mythological gods and creatures that you normally don't encounter in our typical like Greek, Egyptian, Scandinavian gods pantheons that we know. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. On the quality of the book, it would be 4. My attachment to it would be a 3. But this is it guys for this vlog. I've read 4 arcs. I hope you enjoy them. They're coming out soon, so check them out if they sound interesting to you. I hope you found this helpful. Maybe you found out about a new coming out book. Let's support authors, especially in this troubling time. But this is it from me. If you guys could subscribe, leave a comment and like, that would be so appreciated. But otherwise, I will see you in my next video. Bye!